for the third or fourth straight week in a row. Sorry, it caught me off guard. For the fourth straight week in a row, we've got a new number one in Class 4A. Again, if you remember, we've had Xavier, and we've gone ADM, and we've gone back to Xavier. But now with Xavier's latest loss, we have a new face at number one. Be sure to tune in to the end to see who that is. But nevertheless, we got Class 3A rankings. We got to get through some teams before we get to that point, starting with number 16 through 11. At number 16, Denison Schleswig. They lost to Glenwood 28-14. Glenwood is a top 10 team, so not a horrible loss. They moved down one spot and will be the last team in the rankings. New to the rankings, the Winterset Huskies. They beat Atlantic 21-0 and slot in at the number 15 spot. Also at number 14, Ballard, they jump up 2 spots after beating DCG 24-0. And Lamar's at number 13, they move down 4 spots after losing to MOC Floyd Valley 18-13. Newton holds down the number 12 spot. They beat Marshalltown 45-0. And rounding out our 16 through 11, Pella, the Dutch, new to the rankings after beating number 1 Xavier 31-21. What a big win for Luke Anderson and company. Pella, the Dutch, enter our top 16 for the first time. But let's get to your guys' top 10 as I just realized my camera's off. Now it's on. There we go. 16 through 11 is done. Now moving into the top 10 with the only team undefeated in Class 4A at number 10, Gilbert, the Tigers. Again, 4-0 start. They get Boone and Hoover for the next 2 weeks. So looking at a 6-0 start for Gilbert. They've just done nothing but climb. Likely be sitting at 6-0 heading into a 3-game stretch where they're going to get Bondurant, Newton, and Pella. So Gilbert, some massive games left on the schedule for the lone undefeated team in Class 4A. At number 9, Norwalk, they moved down 3 spots after getting trounced by ADM. They look to bounce back this week against a number 15 Winterset squad. They have a lighter schedule the next 3 weeks before ending the season with Lewis Central and Glenwood. So again, Norwalk, after a pretty tough loss at ADM, they're going to look to bounce back and hold down a spot in our top 10. At number 8, Glenwood, they move up 2 spots, and their lone loss still this year is to Harlan. They get another test this week in Lewis Central, win, and they put themselves in the contender conversation. Another loss, and they're looking at a tough road to the playoffs. So Glenwood, a huge game this week, Caden Anderson and company. Again, a really big one coming up. At number 7, Cedar Rapids Xavier at 2-2. They moved down 6 spots after a baffling loss to 2-2 Pella. I like how our ranker put it there, a baffling loss. I don't think anyone was expecting that. A Pella squad who has lost to Ballard and Indianola already. So Xavier, they now have 2 losses in the regular season for the first time since 2014. So a class that we honestly thought was all but Xavier's this year has turned into anything but that, and we now have a case. I could see a case for the top 7 teams in this class ending up on top at the Unidome. So Class 4 is going to be an absolute it's going to be madness going into the postseason. But rounding out our 10 through 6 is ADM, who moves down 1 spot, dominating performance over Norwalk. But the loss to Lewis Central is going to hurt a bit. A Lewis Central team that now has their second loss of the year. I know it was to a good Bondurant for our team. But, again, that Lewis Central loss just doesn't look as good after them losing again. So they're going to move down 1 spot to the number 6 spot. Still a really good team. And really just you could move 7 through 1, like I said, anywhere in any order it feels like. But this week, ADM is going to sit there at the number 6 spot. But let's get into our top 5, where we have 2 new teams in our top 5, some familiar faces and some brand new. Lewis Central, they move down 1 spot. They lose to Bondurant. They've beat ADM and Harlan, but they've lost to Bondurant and Creston. So a really tough non-district for Lewis Central again. 3 ranked teams. 3 of them are top. All 4 of those games. Those teams are top 6 in their respective class. Harlan being 3A, obviously, but ADM, Bondurant, and Creston all top 5 in their respective classes at some point throughout the year. So Lewis Central has just had an absolute gauntlet of a non-district. They find themselves at 2-2 and number 5 in Class 4A. But at number 4, moving up 4 spots, Bondurant for our big win over Lewis Central after Lewis Central knocked off ADM. Bondurant has the loss to North Polk, but the Lewis Central win is a big one. And really, right ahead of them, like we talked about, North Polk. North Polk lost to a solid Webster City squad, and they may be number 1 if that score is flipped any other way. North Polk should not be really tested again until the final week against ADM. Again, North Polk's win over Bondurant Farrar in week 1 is looking a whole lot better now. That was a massive win. That's going to have some huge stock in our rankings, and that's probably why North Polk is ahead of Bondurant Farrar right now. But moving on, North Scott at number 2, a tough loss to Western Dubuque. Really, that was probably a game where the winner was going to be number 1, and North Scott just ended up a touchdown short. 31-24, I believe, was the final there. They get Burlington this week before a big week 6 matchup with Xavier. Again, North Scott, they lose, but it was 2 of the number 1 teams. So they move up a spot with them and take Western Dubuque's spot. As Western Dubuque takes Xavier's spot after beating North Scott, and then Xavier loss, kind of opens the door for them to slot in at number 1. And Glant Glouser, I saw the tweet. He broke his own school record for the most rushing yards in a game. I didn't see what the official number was. It was like 418 was the unofficial number on Twitter, which is insane. And the Bobcats moved to 3-1 after their win over North Scott. They have the loss to Xavier, but it was a close one, 22-20. And obviously with Xavier dropping 2 games, it just makes sense for Western Dubuque to be the number 1 team right now. It's really just a conveyor belt in Class 4A right now. Number 1 loses and everyone else kind of slots up. So we'll see if Western Dubuque can be the first number 1 team in a month to hold down that spot for a consecutive week. So they've got Waverly Shell Rock next. No easy task. But again, they're going to try and hold down that spot for the first time. But that's all I got for the top 16 in Class 4A, a class, again, where our ranker really has his work cut out for him. He did a good job, and everything makes sense. But be sure to leave a comment if you disagree. I mean, I know there's a ton of ifs in this class. If this happens, someone could be higher. But nevertheless, that's all I got for top 16 in Class 4A. I'll catch you guys next week. Be sure to subscribe to IA Sports if you're not already on YouTube. And check out the rest of our rankings. We got a ton of good stuff coming your way. But I'll catch you guys next week.